Hi, I'm Professor Green, and today we'll be doing Chapter 6, Part 2. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and share my screen. I do like this section, difficult conversations. I just think there's a lot to be learned, and the world could be a more peaceful place if everybody attended to these next couple of slides. So let's go ahead and get through them. And maybe for some of you who are in the middle of your MBA, nothing here is new. But maybe some things it could just be helpful to be reiterated. So the learning objectives for Chapter 6, Part 2 is explain how to successfully engage in difficult conversations with others. I feel like we're not lawyers, right? Lawyers maybe kind of thrive on difficult conversations. And there will continue to be difficult conversations in the future. So here's some tools on how to help us do that. First, recognizing the problem of avoidance, right? Realizing that we don't want to talk about it sometimes, knowing when and how to engage in difficult conversations, and then applying supportive communication tactics. So let's go ahead and start. Avoidance, right? Failing to communicate about a difficult topic. I think we all do this at times, right? We kind of just push it off until we actually really have to engage with it. It occurs because people lack skills for handling these conversations or afraid that having a conversation will make problems worse. And, a lot of us, have developed traits of being people pleasers. And so that's another reason why we just want everyone to be happy. We don't like conflict. Especially here in Southern California where the sun is almost always shining. We like to be happy. So it's not simple sometimes to have a not so easy conversation. What is avoidance, right? And why does it happen? Again, people pleasing, deep-seated fear of upsetting others. It's associated with the fight or flight response to conflict or stress. So you kind of run away from stress. Ignoring or delaying the conflict, sidestepping the issue, changing the subject, completely withdrawing from the situation. I've had managers do that, and nothing good ever really comes of that. Or slightly holding on to resentment about unresolved conflicts. And I think we can all relate to that one. So the problem with avoidance is that it compromises true feelings and generates frustration. Right. So I think, again, we can all relate to this. We come up with stories in our head as to what the other person is thinking or doing. And in reality, we don't really know. Because of all this whole process associated with stress, it creates burnout, anxiety, depression. Just right now, I'm waiting for an email back from the administration, and just wondering what they're going to say creates a little anxiety, even though at the end of the day, it's not really a big deal. But that weight is sometimes anxiety making. So when we have avoidance, it strains relationships, creates more misunderstandings, and makes working together more challenging. So really important to not avoid difficult conversations. So what is a difficult conversation and when should we have one? They're characterized by strong emotion and potential conflict, that you think that someone's going to disagree with you and you're anxious about it to begin with. So the tensions in these conversations are, what happened? So see if you can find out the facts of the situation. The feelings of the conversation. How did the event make the person feel, or how does it make you feel? And then the identity conversation, what the situation says about the person and who they are. So these are three different types of difficult conversations. And so let me make sure I covered here all my notes. Okay. Great. I think we're moving along. Oh, yeah, exactly. They include, as I said, emotion and potential conflict. Great. So one of the biggest problems that we assume that we experience, that our things are factual and that our facts are indisputable. The stories we tell ourselves, which we've spoken about a little bit already in this course. So really important to identify, is it a fact or is it something that we think is a fact, right? And that this shows up again here, attribution bias. So the tendency for people to inflate their view of their self while deflating the view of others. It's kind of a natural protection mechanism, but detrimental when it happens in the wrong way and in the workplace. So, so we can, tell ourselves, oh, it's not my fault. It's all your fault, being a victim or seeing the other person as a villain. There's nothing else I can do. I'm justified in doing this, right? But as we can tell immediately, right, that these are very, immature ways of looking at a situation. So I like this slide because it really goes into detail about to help avoid the victim mentality. And I think we all probably know people who are consistently saying that they were taken advantage of. So I love this, here are the 911. So if you feel like you're falling into this trap, seeing if you can go through these steps. The first one is we need to shift from certainty about our views to inquiry and openness about the views of others. I'm right and you're wrong. And a both and view can acknowledge that maybe both partners are right, both views can be appropriate and accepted, right? So very much, open to a discussion. Then we should be open to the other's intent. So we assume good intent here, that instead of assuming that whatever the person was trying to do was evil, we should say, maybe they were trying to do something that we just don't understand and that their intentions are actually good. And third, we need to acknowledge our feelings and how they're driving our assumptions. I feel hurt and I feel, that person really tried to hurt me. So be open to others' response about their intent, because, obviously, potentially, your emotions are getting in the way of really seeing clearly what the situation is. And, I think about how our emotions can fog our brain. Again, going back to toddlers, that, when they have a tantrum, there's really no reasoning with them, right? They're on the floor, they're crying, they don't know how to manage their emotions. That's not the time to say, like, you'll feel better later. It's okay. It's not okay. And that's okay. You just have to sit there and say, I'm here for you. When you're ready, we can talk about it. No trying to say, like, stop crying, let's do something else. Let them work through their emotions, right? Because their head is so foggy from this tantrum. And even though as adults we learn to manage our emotions a little bit, still that emotion, that anxiety, that frustration, it gets in the way of us really seeing the clear picture. So identifying what your emotion is potentially and maybe seeing if that's clogging your vision. And so finally, we should get over the need to assign blame, right? Instead of openly sharing perspectives about underlying causes, instead try to openly share perspectives about underlying causes and jointly accept responsibility so you can agree on ways to avoid future problems, right? So looking for a win-win solution, and we will have a whole chapter on negotiation, but I think this really relates to that, as Roberto was saying in our guest speaking opportunity, that that we always try and look and see what the other person's perspective is. So identity threats, again, like emotions, this can cloud our vision. And so when what makes a conversation difficult is that it challenges a person's sense of who they are, right? This is our identity, how we see ourselves, where we see ourselves positioned in the world. And when our identity is threatened, we really feel like our self-worth is threatened, our morality, our position in relation to others. And threats are activated by feelings that may be outside of our conscious awareness. So conscious defense mechanism kick in automatically to protect us, right? So the brain is built a certain way for a reason, but the result is disconfirmation, the feeling of being put down or having some self-worth questioned. And this actually happened to me this summer. The dean was asking me to sidestep some responsibilities that I was doing so that I could hand them over to someone else because she had some other things that she needed me to take care of. And I was actually kind of insulted at first. She was like, Ingrid, I prefer if you didn't do that type of work because we have someone else here to do that. And I was like, but that's part of my identity. I love doing that work. And she's like, I know, but that work is really for an administrator, and we need you to do some other things. So it took me a minute to like find my feet, and not go back to the place of insult where I was initially. So whether and when to have the conversation. So when should you have the conversation? If you should have the conversation. So, hopefully, conversation can help resolve an issue, but sometimes it can actually make things worse. So you want to make sure that you're doing it at the right time. So first, do you have all the facts and enough information between the parties to help understand and jointly resolve the situation? So do your research ahead of time. And if we haven't heard that enough this semester, it's important, right? Talk to as many people, do online research, whatever it is, to make sure that you come to the conversation with what you need. Feelings, we have a handle on our feelings, right? It's, as we say, if you're in a marriage, right? Like, try not to have a conversation while you're angry, because again, your emotions kind of block what's going on. Our identity, have we addressed how the issue is affecting and potentially threatening our own identity, right? Is it my issue, right? Is it because I'm upset about who I am in this situation? So what are the skills for having difficult conversation? And I think this is really important. And even though, again, it might be a simple thing, I can definitely tell often an MBA business student before and after their MBA, because really MBAs really have had a lot of practice in this. So supportive communication principles for effectively reducing tension. Emotional defenses with difficult conversations can be minimized by encouraging conversations characterized by joint problem solving, right? And so again, we saw in previous slides, right? That's the attitude that we go into it with. How can we make this a win-win for everybody? So joint problem solving involves framing a problem in an objective rather than an accusatory or confrontational manner, right? Not you did this, you did that, etc. Think about more I messages. Individuals will need to step back from the emotion of the situation and think deeply about how, if the problem is fixed, both parties will benefit. Right? How do we really want to get out? What do we really want to get out of this conversation? What behaviors need to be changed to benefit both of us? What can each of us do realistically to make the situation better? So defensiveness, right, happens when people are feeling attacked. People get angry, aggressive, defiant. And I have to say, I felt a little bit about that this summer. And it wasn't until I kind of understood the bigger picture. Disconfirmation occurs when people feel that they're being put down or their self-worth is being challenged. Right. So again, really important to make sure that people feel confident in these conversations. So a problem-oriented, not a person-oriented. And again, we see this for the last couple of decades. We've been told, compliment somebody on the task rather than who they are as a person, or say, that's a really nice blouse, as opposed to you look really nice today, or you did to a toddler again, you did such a good job, instead of you're such a good boy, right? Because it allows the person to identify exactly where they're doing well or in this situation not doing well. So we want to identify what the problem is and not say that they're a horrible person overall. So it identifies the issue, the event, the physical behavior where you'd like to see a change, right? As we see here, your tone of voice, your tense posture suggested that you are frustrated, as opposed to you're a demanding person, you'll never be satisfied. Remember that word choice counts. So again, as we said in the previous section, denotation versus connotation, specify and non-judgmental examples to start a difficult conversation. Be careful to avoid dangerous words such as never and always. I think that's a good rule in general for life, right? We can hardly ever say never or always. It's something is always possible. Maybe death and taxes, right? Other than that, nothing else. And don't say things like, you never listen to me, right? You always interrupt me. So we want to, again, talk to just the specific incident that happened. Some supportive communication principles. To summarize, focus on the problem, not the person. Be specific, not global, and objective, not judgmental. Own rather than disown the communication, right? This is one that we haven't spoken about yet, saying like, I think we need to make a change, as opposed to management tells us that we have to change, right? Because people then just get frustrated, like, who the heck is management, right? So, then you're talking to an individual, and match your words with the body language. Plan carefully, but be open to new information. So again, plan and prep as much as you can, but sometimes you'll have new information. So plan for the unexpected. Planning the conversation should allow wiggle room for different scenarios to work out. So don't have a set solution when you go into it. And then have opening comments prepared that focus on joint problem solving. Write them down. And then don't overly specify what you think the solution should be right away. Manage your behavior, self-management, acceptance of your own contribution to the problem. Owning the communication means taking responsibility for what you say rather than placing it on the third party. And being congruent means that the verbal and nonverbal language agrees. So that ends section 2 of chapter 6. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you in section 3.